Woo!
Now, many of us know that in the movie, and in the next series is ER24. But is also an accomplished film producer and one of our favorite things of best is
Yes.
we are so please help me give him a wonderful National Black Festival.
Hello, hello, hello. This is your girl, Dr. Bonnie L. Lawson, co-host of Black Office Matter TV. I am the host of the Horizons Author Lounge, owner of Meet the World Image Solutions, 25-star published author, and I have the pleasure of speaking with this very prolific actor as well as writer, Mr. Eric Lasalle. This is my hand. So, first, we gotta talk. I read Laws of Depravity, and I didn't read it. I actually listened to it on audio, and I didn't know what was scarier. I don't know, reading the book or listening to it. But by the time I got to the end, I was clutching my pearls, and there were certain parts that I was listening to. I had gotten where I was going, but I did not want to get out of the car because I needed to finish what was about to happen. That story was everything. What in the world is going on in that mind of yours to come up with such a story?
Well, the story actually started with I read an article. A lot of people didn't know this, myself included. But all of Jesus's disciples were brutally murdered. And ironically, it's not in the Bible. But if you look up any, if you do research, if you pull up the death of the disciples, and there were more than 12, there were the greater disciples and the lesser. Anyway, so I read this, and they were killed horrifically. They were killed violently. They were hanged. They were crucified. They were torn limb from limb. So I don't know. I read the article, and I was like, wouldn't it be interesting if you had a modern day serial killer who was killing his victims in the same way that the apostles were killed? And so that became the premise of the story. And we were just talking, it's one of my favorite films is the movie Seven. So I wanted to draw some of the things from Seven because the cool thing about Seven was the guy was a brilliant, murderer, but he was preaching a sermon through his killings. And so when you write thrillers, one thing, but first when you write any type of book, when you write thrillers, you always want to come up with a new way in, because most books have, oh, he's a serial killer. Like, what can you do to make that killer stand out? What can you do to make your crimes stand out? The smarter the bad guy, the smarter your heroes have to be. So it was built in. So it came out of a really weird place. Then I just started, diving into it. So that's where it came from.
Yeah, it's an amazing story, and I think it's an amazing debut as an author. Was this the first book?
Yes.
And now you have two other books, and this is in a series as well?
Yeah, so I published 3 books. The first book is Laws of Depravity. The second book is Laws of Wrath. And then the third book is Laws of Annihilation. They're actually all 3 back there. I completed book 4, which is called Laws of Solomon. That's ready for pre-order, but it will be officially released next September. And then I will have one last book, the 5th book, which is called Laws of Mercy. And then I'm going to close out that series. And I've already written the first book for the next series, which is completely different. It's, not as scary.
Well, it takes a lot of talent to be able to write something like that. And still, even if the killing weren't in the story, it's still a very intriguing story. And I think to have a story with that many layers, it's okay that it's scary. It wasn't just scary for scary.
Right.
And I think that's usually what I have a problem with. When things are just scary for scary sake,
Right.
and it's not really a story. But there was a story within a story within a story, and even when you get to the end, and I can't even say anything about the end, because I say anything about the end, it gives something away.
Right.
Yeah. So, but what do you attribute your storytelling talents to? Is it part of just being an actor and your journey of being an actor?
Well, years ago, I was trying to come up because people kept asking, what do you consider yourself? And I think a lot of times we sort of have to, people want to pigeonhole you because that's sort of the extent of their imagination. So if they can't see beyond you being able to do this, this, and this, they're more comfortable if they can say that. So someone was asking me, what do you consider yourself? And one day it just came to me, and he said, I'm a storyteller. Because a storyteller includes me being an actor, me being a director, me being a producer, me being an author. It includes all of that. So to answer your question, I love stories. I love, when I was a kid, I used to, I started off with Curious George, The Adventures of Curious George, and it was an adventure, and I started reading. So I love stories. And then to become an actor, you're participating in a story. To become a director and a producer, you're putting the story together. To become a screenwriter, you're writing the story. To become an author, you're creating the story. So I love being a storyteller.
Absolutely. Now, another treat with listening to the audiobook is I believe you narrated the book yourself.
Yes.
Did you narrate all three of the books?
Yes.
And so that's huge, and it's a treat because you're an actor. You were able to not only tell the story, but you did a pretty good job of voicing the characters.
Thank you. And also, I'm cheap labor. If I got to pay somebody, I might as well pay myself. So, but the opportunity to, when you write a book, that book lives with you. April and I were talking earlier, and it's like that thing wears you out. You live with this thing. There's an interesting thing about writers. They say when you're a writer, you're always writing. Because either you're actually writing or you're thinking about writing. And I think that that's true for a lot of artists. I think when you're a singer, you're singing or you're thinking about singing. You see things in a certain way. Like, we could be driving down the street, we see a story.
Yeah.
We overhear something, we see a story. We read something in the news, we go past what the reporting is, and we start imagining, oh, I wonder what was the history. I wonder what is that relationship.
Yeah.
So we're always looking for stories. We're always looking for that. And so the opportunity to, put this whole thing together, because I think, something that I've always preached, something that I've always talked about, and I still believe this, and this is back in the 90s when I was doing ER. I always talked about Black ownership. And I always talk about that it's really important for us to start owning whatever we do. And so when we create, we have to create now with that in mind. We were talking earlier, we talked about AI is coming for so many of us. So you have to try so many different things, but we've got to create an empire. So some of my first questions, I had an opportunity to talk with Rachel after her talk, and I was like, are you thinking about your books turning into series and movies? Because it's always thinking that next step. It's always thinking ownership. It's always thinking like, this is my vision. And that's what we've had. We've participated in other people having that type of success. We don't always create that success for ourselves. And so, look, I have the blessed to be an actor, to be a director. So yeah, I'm gonna do my own voiceovers. I'm gonna create. I'm creating a brand.
Yes.
And so many of us that are authors, established authors, it's really about creating your brand and extending that brand. And so this is all a part of me creating my brand. We write, written the books to turn into us. When I first started writing, I was thinking it was going to be a movie series.
Yeah.
But I've been writing this stuff so long now that movies are kind of dying and it's all about streaming. So I recently signed with CAA, and they're looking at it to turn it into, we're pursuing how to turn the series into streaming. And so that again becomes more ownership. If should it, when it happens, then that means now I am producing, I'm making those decisions, as opposed to, as an actor, I've loved it, it served me well. I don't do it a lot now. But as an actor, you show up and you respond, and people have a lot of power over you. And people may decide that you're too short or you're too tall. I got fired from a job once because they said I was too young looking for the love interest who was a star. So somebody had to go, and it was me. And so it had nothing to do with how hard I was working or whatever. So I realized then, that's when I started directing. I was like, I didn't want to spend the rest of my career letting other people have that power over me. And so when I talk about Black ownership, it's ultimately us finding that. I mean, there are so many women, and particularly Black women, that created these cool books, because they also get to define, like we as African Americans, we grew up, particularly in my generation, we grew up with people interpreting who we were. And they didn't have to do the homework. They decided this is what Africa looked like, and Tarzan, and this and that, and this is what, and then when I started becoming an actor, and Black women were hoes, and they were this and they were that, because that's someone's interpretation of us. So when we have ownership, we decide what that interpretation is. And so that's why I love, it's not just one piece. There are layers to this game. And it is incumbent upon all of us what's going on in the world, what's going on with AI, what's going on politically. It's incumbent upon us to understand that we've got to work for that kind of ownership and power even harder now than we did. We can't afford to just kind of, I just want to do this. We can't afford it.
Well, my question to that then would be, because I love everything that you said, and I believe it's absolutely true. But there's somebody out there who's saying, well, Eric Lasalle, that's easy for you to say because you have a platform, you've been in the industry, you have respect. I'm still trying to make it. I'm still trying to find somebody to give me that opportunity. What do I do?
Well, I think that's look, everybody has a struggle. So don't get it twisted. Everybody has a struggle. We make assumptions. For the record, I mean, I started off as a self-published author. And it took me 8 years to get a publisher. So I don't hit my celebrity, I don't want to comfortable with that word, but that whatever. People knew me. That didn't help me in this arena because I had to prove myself as an author.
Yes.
So in some ways, and I'm not, crying wolf or anything here. In some ways, I had different obstacles to overcome because people didn't want to take me seriously. Because they assume, this is just an actor who thinks he can write. So for years, I had to know, and then slowly people start going, he can write. Assumption, just as someone who has no connection, they're going to have their own obstacles. And so you just have to persevere. It took me 8 years. So that's not because, he's a TV actor, he fell into some big deal. It happens for some people. didn't happen for me. And I'm okay with that because I'm built to work for it. And so I work for it. But I think be careful how we make assumptions either way. Like sometimes you go, oh, I know you got it easy because you look this way. I know you got it easy because you're this color. You got it easy because you're this gender. You don't know what that person goes through to get to where they are. And so that's what I'm about.
Well, I thank you for that transparency because the way social media is set up these days, is everybody only wants to talk about the successes and they make everything look easy. I started my Instagram page today and I had 100,000 followers in 5 days, and they don't want to talk about the struggle. They don't want to. They don't want to talk about what they had to do to get there. They just made it seem like it's instantaneous.
Yeah.
So when somebody hears somebody like you tell your story, I think that actually helps them.
Well, I think this. I was born and raised in Hartford, Connecticut, and when I started pursuing acting, I had no frame of reference. There was no one that looked like me that was doing it on the scale that I wanted to do. So my mother, I think a parent's first obligation is protection of your child. So my mother we to go to work at Pratt & Whitney, which is a high-paid factory that built an aeronautics, so they built stuff for planes. Very respectable job. And at first I thought she didn't understand my dream. She just wanted safety because she didn't know about this acting stuff.
Right.
And so I think that, you pursue things, you go after things, and you now make it possible for other people. Now, this generation, they have a whole lot of people to way outside of me. They've got Black women, Black men, whatever gay, whatever your thing is, there are people now that have succeeded in that. And even if they don't fit your dynamic specifically, you can at least look and go, well, that person was different. They might not be my kind of different, but they were different and they made it. So that gives people more confidence.
Yes.
I didn't have that source back then. And so sometimes when you're trying to be one of the first of something, I think there are different challenges. And the good news is, if that's how you work out, if those are the muscles you develop, those muscles serve you well later. And you know what I mean? So you're not, we live in a microwave society. So when you talk about Instagram and instant followers, we want stuff fast. I come home from work, I want to eat my food in 7 minutes. But we grew